In the first age, the people of Avarim believed no wall could hold them because they needed none. Their strength came from the covenant stones, not magic stones, but the laws carved upon them, laws of mercy, truth, restraint, courage, and justice. So long as the people honored those laws, their fields flourished, their judges were wise, their warriors stood fearless, and every neighboring kingdom spoke of Avarim as the nation favored by heaven itself. But power bred pride, and pride bred forgetfulness. The people began to honor gold above truth, appetite above discipline, and custom above righteousness. The covenant stones still stood in their courts and temples, but fewer eyes looked upon them and fewer hearts trembled at their words. With every law neglected, a crack opened in the strength of the nation. Their leaders quarreled, their priests sold blessings, and their people became divided against themselves. Then came the empire of Drazar from across the eastern sea, ironclad and merciless. Drazar broke Avarim's armies, tore down its gates, burned its holy temples to ash, and drove the people from their homeland in chains and scattered caravans. Yet Drazar did not leave the land empty. They allowed another people, the Velkhari, to settle there and rebuild upon the ruins. The Velkhari raised new towers where the old sanctuaries had stood, and though they used the names of sacred things, their hearts were bent toward cruelty, greed, and falsehood. They took the vineyards, the rivers, the courts, and the high places, and claimed inheritance over what had never been theirs. In time, the world forgot the difference. The dispossessed children of Avarim became strangers in every market, while the Velkhari sat in their land wearing the garments of legitimacy. Generations later, when memory had thinned but not died, a messenger arose among the scattered people. His name was Saron, and he came speaking not his own ambition, but the voice of the God of Avarim. He called the exiles to remember who they were. He taught that the covenant had not failed, the people had failed it, and yet mercy remained. He spoke of reunion, of restoring the nation, of rebuilding what had been broken from the inside, long before enemies broke it from the outside. For a brief time, hope spread like fire through dry grass, but the Velkhari feared him. If Saron succeeded, their claim would be exposed as theft. So they twisted his words, bought witnesses, and accused him before the new ruling empire, the vast Western power called Malrek. Malrek cared little for truth so long as order was preserved. Saron was condemned as a rebel, nailed upon a public frame, and killed under imperial sentence, while the Velkhari watched in relief. After his death, the children of Avarim suffered even more bitterly. Their revolts were crushed. Families were taken in ships and columns to distant continents. In foreign lands, they were renamed, sold, beaten, and taught to bow before strange altars. Their old speech was stripped from them. Their songs were mocked. Their children grew up knowing fragments. A prayer here, a proverb there, a dream that would not die. They forgot their beginning, though not entirely. Deep beneath the dust of centuries, the covenant still smoldered. Meanwhile, the Velkhari prospered in the stolen land. They harvested its grain, mined its hills, and boasted that heaven had chosen them. Their wealth multiplied, but so did their corruption. They hardened their laws against the poor, spilled innocent blood, and turned sacred memory into an instrument of power. Then, in a later age, a stirring began among the scattered descendants of Avarim. Not all at once, and not in one place, but in many lands. At the edges of despair, some began to wake. A grandmother's whispered blessing matched a line in an old manuscript. A forgotten feast resembled a commandment. A name preserved in secret survived translation in chains. One by one, families and then whole communities began to ask, who were we before we were broken? The more they searched, the more they found. And the more they returned to the laws of their God, the more they changed. Drunkards became disciplined. Enemies became brothers. The abandoned gathered the orphan. The divided learned again to speak one destiny. Their strength did not return first in armies, but in order, honor, unity, and faithfulness. Fields in exile prospered. Councils gained wisdom. Songs lost for centuries were sung again beneath foreign stars. At the same time, the empire of Malrek, descendant of the very power that had once killed Saron and scattered his people, began to crack under the weight of its own excess. Its rulers saw the wickedness of the Velkhari growing dangerous even to them. Through politics, war, and strange providence, Malrek opened the way for the awakened children of Avarim to gather. What had once been used for their destruction was, in the turning of ages, bent toward their restoration. The return was not easy. The land was fortified by the Velkhari, who called the awakened heirs impostors and rebels. But now the children of Avarim were no longer merely scattered survivors. They were a people remembering themselves. Guided by the ancient laws and united by the memory of Sauron's sacrifice, they rose together. Kingdoms that once despised them now aided them. Whether out of justice, fear, or divine compulsion, the struggle shook the world. In the final war, the Velkhari's false claim was broken. Their towers fell, their lies were uncovered, and their cruelty returned upon their own heads. The children of Avarim reclaimed their inheritance stone by stone. Upon the old foundations, they restored the temples, not as monuments to pride, but as signs that the covenant had been remembered at last. The laws were taught again in the courts. The feasts returned in their seasons. The scattered were gathered. The broken were named. The nation stood once more. And because their strength had always come, not from blood alone, nor from conquest alone, but from obedience to what was just and holy, their restoration brought more than victory. Trade roads became safe. Judges in other lands learned from their fairness. The weak found refuge. The violent were restrained. Order spread outward from the restored land like dawn over mountains. So the story of Avarim was told for generations after, that a people may lose their kingdom before they lose their calling, that memory buried is not memory destroyed, and that when the scattered remember the law written for them from the beginning, even empires and centuries cannot keep them from coming home.